Welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus check updates, what's going on in the United States, Washington, D.C., money, investing, and the next stimulus package, which has been announced at $3.5 trillion. But one single senator, Senator Joe Manchin from the Democrats, is threatening his own Democratic Party to cut the next stimulus package down to less than half, from $3.5 trillion down to potentially $1.5 trillion. Yeah, we're going to be discussing the next stimulus package, the American Families Plan, as well as what is going on in our country. We have multiple different things to discuss here. The national debt ceiling, which needs to be raised. We're going to be hearing from both the Republicans and the Democrats, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on the debt ceiling, which needs to be raised by next month or the government will default. That's right, default. The government will default by next month if they don't raise the debt ceiling. And the Republicans don't want to do it. They want to force the Democrats to do it all by themselves. And Nancy Pelosi says that the Democrats aren't going to do it by themselves. So we're at a bit of a quandary. And yeah, it's you can't make this stuff up, guys. You can't make this stuff up. And if they don't raise the debt ceiling, well, the government's going to default for the first time ever. Yeah. And I literally cannot make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. So we're going to just jump right in. We got a lot to discuss here, as well as the next stimulus package and a January 6th new rally that's going to be coming this weekend that the Capitol is bracing for already. Check this out. Also, if you find these videos helpful, don't forget to hit the like button for us down below. The White House says that law enforcement is in a heightened state of alert for a new January 6th rally that is going to be happening on Saturday. About 700 people is expected for this new rally regarding January 6th, the Department of Homeland Security officials say. Also, 6 Capitol police officers are facing disciplinary actions regarding the events that happened on January 6th, and dozens of police officers were absolved. 3 of those 6 officers who the department did not identify were flagged for conduct unbecoming of a police officer. Roughly 700 people are expected to attend this new rally on Saturday, called the Justice for J6th, January 6th, rally on Saturday, according to the official at the Department of Homeland Security. Pro-Trump protesters have plans to travel to Washington, D.C. this weekend to attend this rally, which is being held in support of people who were charged with crimes related to the January 6th attack on the Capitol, according to NBC News. Department of Homeland Security expects that a number of demonstrators connected to the groups that stormed the Capitol will return for this Saturday's event. The department, however, says that the expected crowd will likely be far less than the thousands of protesters who flocked to the nation's capital at the beginning of the year. Melissa Smyslova, the Deputy Undersecretary for the Intelligence Enterprise Readiness at the Department of Homeland Security, said during Tuesday's Homeland Security Enterprise Forum that the department has been tracking publicly available information on protesters, permit applications for large gatherings with the U.S. Park Police, and hotel reservations to gauge how many protesters are expected to attend the rally, according to NBC News. She said that the DHS has learned through social media posts that the similar demonstrations are set to take place in other cities as well throughout the country. Law enforcement agencies have been increasingly vigilant in preparing for Saturday's rally, hoping to avoid conditions that allowed the riot to happen on January 6th. She said the department has been more proactive when it comes to sharing intelligence with law enforcement in advance of these events this time around, something she said the department was, quote, a little bit lax of before the January events. Well, I don't think they knew what was going to happen before it happened last time around. Quote, what we realized after January 6th is that we had gotten a little bit lax in some of the aggressive conversation. Yeah, so let's hope this weekend does not have a repeat of what happened last time around. I mean, yeah, you can let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll see what happens. I'll keep you up to date. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and leader of the Republicans in the Senate says that the Republicans are united in opposition to raising the debt ceiling. Check this out. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on Tuesday, today, said that Republicans will vote in unison to defeat any government funding bill that will also raise the national debt ceiling, even though they have to do this or else the government will default. Republicans are united in opposition to raise the debt ceiling. Mitch McConnell declared when asked at a Republican conference meeting whether any Republicans will vote for funding a stopgap that expands the federal government's borrowing authority, which is expected to be exhausted in October. McConnell explains that Republicans oppose raising the debt ceiling, not because it doesn't need to be done, but because doing so would pave the way for Democrats to pass a $3.5 trillion human infrastructure bill, the next stimulus package, that would undo much of former President Donald Trump's 2017 Trump tax cuts, which the Republicans passed through the reconciliation process without any Democratic support. Remember that the Republicans in 2017, they used the reconciliation card or reconciliation process to, when they had control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they used the 2017 Trump tax cuts to lower the corporate tax rate from 35% all the way down to 21%, among a whole bunch of other things. They passed a huge reconciliation bill without any Democratic support through the reconciliation process. Remember, Democrats and Republicans used the reconciliation process. So again, this is the reconciliation process been going on for many, many years. And Republicans had their shot at it when they had control of everything back in 2017 and 2018. Now the Democrats have control of everything, the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And they passed the third stimulus check package, the $1,400 checks and the $3,000 to $3,600 child tax credits, among the $40 billion of rental assistance and everything that was in the third stimulus check package. And this next package that they're working on right now, the $3.5 trillion next stimulus package. Both of those packages, well, the third stimulus check package was passed without a single Republican vote. And this next package that they're trying to pass, the $3.5 trillion package, will not get a single Republican vote either. But now Mitch McConnell is saying that they won't raise the debt ceiling either, even though they raised that, I think it was 3 times during former President Donald Trump's presidency. And you have to raise the debt ceiling or else the government will default. My best analogy for this would be like a bank not being able to lend out money. The bank would go default. If the bank couldn't lend out money and the bank couldn't use its capital, the bank would go default. If the bank couldn't use its money for its obligations, the bank would die. And the U.S. government is going to run out of money by next month, which, as you can see from this headline here from Yahoo News, Janet Yellen, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, says that the U.S. is on track to default by October if they don't raise the debt ceiling. So even though they raised the debt ceiling, I think it was 3 times during former President Donald Trump's 4 years, and they have to do this every 1 to 2 years, the Republicans say they don't want to do this. And right now, over 100 House Republicans have signed a letter promising not to vote to raise the debt ceiling. And I think it's 46 out of the 50 Republicans in the Senate do not want to do this as well. And Mitch McConnell says it's because they don't support the $3.5 trillion stimulus package. But remember that this next stimulus package is paid for. In fact, we actually have some Democratic senators that are demanding that it be fully paid for. So even a few Democrats are demanding that it's going to be fully paid for here. So it might not end up at $3.5 trillion. It might end up at $3 trillion. We have Senator Joe Manchin demanding, I don't know if he's demanding, but saying that he wants it to be around $1.5 trillion. I think that's maybe his starting point. They're going to probably find a middle ground in there somewhere. 2.5 trillion, 3 trillion. I don't know what it's going to end up being at. But we have some Democratic senators demanding that it be fully paid for, which is very, very different than the last 3 stimulus package or 3 stimulus check packages, I should say. Remember that former President Donald Trump actually had 5 stimulus packages 2 had stimulus checks. There was 3 other minor packages that just had money for like their paycheck protection programs. That were just small packages. But all of those packages, nobody paid for. All the packages by former President Donald Trump and the third stimulus check package by Biden, nobody paid for. Those all went to the national debt. Okay, so the first 2 major stimulus checks packages by former President Donald Trump, those were about 3.3 trillion total, 2.3 trillion for the first one, about $1 trillion for the second one, and the third stimulus check package from Biden was 1.9 trillion. Okay, all those just went to the national debt. But these next 2 packages, the physical infrastructure package that both Mitch McConnell supports, he voted for it, and so Republicans support it, some Republicans and Democrats support it, and the $3.5 trillion package that the Democrats are going to pass through the reconciliation process, which, remember, Republicans passed their own huge package in 2017, the 2017 Trump tax cuts. Democrats use it and Republicans do it. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I'm not picking sides because Republicans use it and Democrats use it. Whoever's in charge at the time happens to use it when they get their chance at it. But this next $3.5 trillion package is going to be fully paid for. And some Democrats are demanding that it be fully paid for, or they're not going to vote for it. And remember that they need every single Democrat in the Senate to vote for it, and 99% of them in the House. So it's going to almost for surely have to be 100% paid for, or else they're not going to vote for it. So it's going to probably have to be 100% paid for. And they're doing this by raising taxes on corporations, raising taxes on the wealthy that make over $400,000, and adding double taxes, or not double taxes, but extra taxes on people that make over $1 million and $500,000. And they're using leftover stimulus money that's already accounted for, and all sorts of things like that. So that was Mitch McConnell saying that basically, even though the Republicans used the reconciliation process to do the 2017 Trump tax cuts, which, by the way, they didn't pay for, it just went on the national deficit. So they passed a massive package which lowered taxes for corporations, and they didn't pay for it. It's not like, so remember, this next package is $3.5 trillion. The Democrats are raising taxes on corporations to pay for it. Okay, it's got to be fully paid for. That's what everybody's demanding. It's got to be fully paid for. Well, the 2017 Trump tax cuts, they lowered taxes on corporations. Nobody paid for it. It was not fully paid for because they lowered taxes on corporations. So it's not like it was fully paid for because they lowered taxes on corporations. So it just went to the national debt. So it's kind of ironic that they don't want to raise the debt limit, and they're potentially going to let the government default because they don't want to add to the national deficit. So they're willing to let the government default when they passed a package that lowered corporate taxes. And I can understand the whole process because I could argue either point, because theoretically, if you lower corporate taxes, the economy could boom more, and theoretically you could bring in taxes, but nobody paid for that package. It's not like the package was paid for. It just went to the national deficit. But it's a really tough situation because we can't let the government default. So that's Mitch McConnell's point of view. But again, we can't let the government default. If all else fails, we have to not let the government default. It doesn't matter what side you're on, whether you're Democrat or Republican, we can't let the government default. That's like the one thing we can't do. So that was Mitch McConnell's point of view. I don't know what let the government default. I guess that's the point of view. Here is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's point of view. Check this out.
Of course, over the next few weeks, the House and Senate must also come together to address the debt ceiling. In America, when it's time to pay the bills, we follow through on our obligations without exception. For a long time, addressing the debt ceiling was considered a routine and responsible step that both sides worked together to achieve. Even when President Trump was in office, Democrats worked 3 times with Republicans to suspend the debt ceiling because it was the right and obvious thing to do. We didn't pick excuses and say, here's why we don't want to do it. We knew it was important, and it was time to lay aside differences and move it forward. But now, unfortunately, some of our Republican colleagues, even though they were eager to have Democrats support them when President Trump was president, some of our Republican colleagues have reportedly contemplating a reckless idea, spearheaded by the Republican senator from Wisconsin, to oppose any effort to raise the debt ceiling whatsoever. And unfortunately and sadly, the Republican leader seems to be going along. Let me be clear. Taking the debt hostage and playing games with the full faith and credit of the United States is reckless, irresponsible, and will harm every single American. It's a complete non-starter. This is not just another political debate. It's about honoring our unbroken commitment to pay our debts and avoid another financial crisis at a crucial moment for our country. Now, it's important to remember that this is not about greenlighting future spending. This is about paying debt from past spending, which was incurred during the Trump administration and which received favorable votes from a majority of Republicans and Democrats. Indeed, there's a new study that came out. According to the Nonpartisan Congressional Research Service, the Trump administration incurred $5.4 trillion in new debt after the debt ceiling was raised in 2019, up through his last day of office. So all of the new $5 trillion in debt, bottom line, was caused under the Trump administration, not by Democratic spending, under the Trump administration. $5.4 trillion from the last day the debt ceiling was raised in 2019 to the last day of Trump's being in office. Another report by the Treasury Department further states that over the entirety of the Trump administration, that figure rose to as high as $8 trillion. Again, let me repeat this so my Republican colleagues hear it loud and clear. This is not about Democrats incurring debt. Between the last time that the debt ceiling was raised in 2019 and the final day of the Trump administration, nothing to do with Biden or Democrats or anything in 2021, his administration added more than $5 trillion to the national debt. And over the 4 years of Donald Trump, new debt totaled as much as $8 trillion. So both sides have a responsibility to pay our bills. Both sides, led by a Republican Senate, incurred much of this new debt. Senators from both parties voted overwhelmingly in support of the many laws that contributed to this obligation. The Congress came together under Donald Trump when Donald Trump was president to pass successive relief laws like the CARES Act, a PPP extension, and the 908 deal in December. Democrats and Republicans voted in huge numbers in support of these laws. Republicans voted to make these expenditures. Now we must come together to do the responsible thing and pay those bills. Leader McConnell assured the country in 2019, when Donald Trump was president, that, quote, "we no doubt raised the debt ceiling on a bipartisan basis," unquote. Again, that's what McConnell said when Trump was president. We will no doubt raise the debt ceiling on a bipartisan basis. He said when Trump was president, failure to do so would be a disaster. Failure to do so now, Leader McConnell, is an equal disaster. Doesn't matter who's president. We've still incurred the bills. So I believe it should be no different this time around. The United States has never, ever defaulted on paying its debt. I can't imagine Republicans would want to be responsible for the first ever default.
So, and remember, the Democrats already have senators saying that 100% of this next package must be paid for. 100% of this package must be paid for, this $3.5 trillion package. So whether it ends up at $3 trillion, $2.5 trillion, $3.5 trillion, that it's going to be fully paid for, which is very, very different than the first stimulus check package, the second stimulus check package, the third stimulus check package, even the 2017 Trump tax cuts. Those packages were not paid for. They didn't raise taxes on corporations and on wealthy. They didn't have money coming in and paid for. So this is a very, very different package. And the infrastructure package, the physical infrastructure package, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package that has both bipartisan support, Republican support, at least partial Republican support that Mitch McConnell is in support from. The physical infrastructure package, roads, bridges, water, internet, physical infrastructure package. Both of those packages are paid for. The physical infrastructure package is almost 100% paid for. Some Republicans consider it 100% paid for. Both these packages are very, very different. They're not technically adding to the national debt because they're paid for. They're very, very different than last several stimulus packages, which basically just nobody paid for because the government already has been spending more than they take in. And then you added these stimulus packages on top of them, which basically just went to the national debt. Okay, so very, very different. Very, very different. They're raising taxes using unspent stimulus money. And yeah, so it's a very, very different argument. So the national debt limit should not really concern this $3.5 trillion package because it's going to be fully paid for. But you can let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And this is all going to happen very, very soon because the government's going to run out of money next month. They have a government shutdown coming at the end of this month, which is in like 2 weeks. On September 30th, the government will shut down on October 1st if they don't pass a bill to fund the government on October 1st. That's actually different than the raising the national debt limit. So you have both of those things there. You have the $3.5 trillion package as well that they're trying to pass. Yeah, we have a lot going on in our country. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I'll let you know what's going on with both parties, Republicans, Democrats. I'm not from either party. I'll let you know what's going on with both sides and what both sides are saying. And somehow they're going to have to come to an agreement between both sides. Yeah. You can click this video here to watch my newest video about potential $1,400 checks and a new petition to have them included in this bill. It's a very good video. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video, in the next video, in the next video, in the next video, in the next video.